Good morning. I'm the Reverend Tom Rossiello, the minister of this fellowship, and it is really wonderful to be with you this morning, either in person here at the Aldea or with our many folks who are with us on Zoom. As we enter into Women's History Month, let us come together with words adapted from a wonderful woman who served our denomination well for many years, the late Reverend Dr. Hope Johnson. She wrote of us, "We are one, a diverse group of proudly kindred spirits, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. We're active and proactive. We care deeply. We live our love as best as we can. We are one working together, singing together, sharing together, praying together, rejoicing together, getting to know each other, seeking, searching, sometimes struggling, listening, paying attention, asking questions, living our answers. We are one learning to love our neighbors and learning to love ourselves, apologizing and forgiving with humility, being forgiven through grace. We are one, always striving to create that beloved community together." As we enter into this time of worship, we do so aware that each Sunday and in so many other ways during the week, that is exactly what we are doing. We are creating and recreating this ever-widening and deepening intentional community that we call the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Miguel de Allende. And that starts with inviting others to join us on that journey and welcoming them to all of our gatherings. So let me ask, are there guests with us today, perhaps from other UU congregations, perhaps folks new to Unitarian Universalism just checking us out, maybe to see if this might be a right spiritual home for you? Please, if you are new with us today at the Aldea and you are so willing, I invite you to stand so that later on after the service, we can see who you are and welcome you in person. And if you are new with us on Zoom, I invite you to type your name and where you're from into chat so that after the service, people who are gathered there can also greet you. You know, there are lots of opportunities to connect and help build that community. You can find them all listed on our website at UUFSMA.org. But to name a couple, there is the Minister's Zoom chat with me every Tuesday morning at 9:30, lunch and games on Thursday afternoon, and the Sangha meditation group, which I believe meets every other week. But all that information is there. And of course, right after the service is a wonderful time to connect. So if you're on Zoom, please enjoy checking in with each other and sharing your thoughts on today's service. If you're here in person, please join us for coffee and cookies, and be sure to check out the welcome table, where you'll find folks ready to share information about becoming a member, all the benefits of being a member, the opportunities to serve or contribute to our community, both our Social Justice Foundation and our fellowship. So yes, we are a proudly diverse group of kindred spirits. So regardless of your nationality, your age, your gender identification, your sexual orientation, your race, your economic status, your theological beliefs, you are welcome here, and we are one. Here not by coincidence, but because we choose to journey together. So please join us in every way that you can on that journey. Our service today will be led by the Reverend Dr. Craig Rubano, a dear friend and one of this congregation's favorite guest ministers for sure. And what a joy it is to welcome him back. As we do, we also recognize the very special relationship that we have with his congregation, the UU congregation of Monmouth County, New Jersey. Through our Social Justice Foundation, they connect deeply with us. They have been partnering with us in working with and supporting not one, but two of our NGOs, Libros para Todos and Caminos de Agua. And Craig is so welcome to this pulpit. He is a scholar, a graduate of Yale, Columbia, and Princeton Theological School. His dissertation, Affirmative Pastoral Ministry Beyond Gender Binaries, Gender Creative Promise, was recently published by Lexington Books. And think about that. What an important subject to address at a time when trans and gender non-binary folks are experiencing such rejection and attack in the United States. Craig is also a gifted musician and performer. As many of you know, he had a brilliant career on Broadway, singing the role of Marius in Les Mis in more than 700 performances, as well as other great roles. And even with the demands of ministry at a large church, he still performs in New York when he can. He's agreed to share with us not only his wonderful ministerial gifts today, but his musical talent as well. So please join me now in welcoming him to our pulpit.
Muy buenos días. Les traigo saludos de la Congregación Unitaria Universalista del Condado Monmouth en Nueva Jersey. Me da mucho gusto estar con ustedes esta mañana. I bring greetings from the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Monmouth County, New Jersey. It's good to be together with you this morning. And not just because it's my fourth time to visit this pulpit, and more of your faces are familiar and beloved to me. Not just because this visit I come with my partner Ron, introducing him to Mexico for the first time. No, it is always a good thing and an act central to Unitarian Universalism to gather together to create intentional community, and in the process to transform ourselves and transform our worlds. Here and in the organizations with which we partner, with love at the center, we live out our values in a world that reveals itself every week to need them more and more. Each week we light a flame in a chalice, reenacting a symbol created in wartime. The Unitarian Service Committee was central in securing safe passage out of Nazi-occupied Europe for those fleeing persecution by the regime. And the organization needed an image to serve as a stamp for the exit papers. The committee commissioned artist Hans Deutsch to create an image to be used, and Deutsch joined two symbols of old, the chalice and the eternal flame, to create what has become a symbol of Unitarian Universalism. I selected chalice lighting words from the late Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Buddhist monk, peace activist, and father of mindfulness, from a book of his entitled No Mud, No Lotus, The Art of Transforming Suffering. It is possible, of course, to get stuck in the mud of life. It is easy enough to notice mud all over you at times. The hardest thing to practice is not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by despair. When you're overwhelmed by despair, all you can see is suffering everywhere you look. You feel as if the worst thing is happening to you. But we must remember that suffering is a kind of mud that we need in order to generate joy and happiness. Without suffering, there is no happiness. So we shouldn't discriminate against the mud. We have to learn how to embrace and cradle our own suffering and the suffering of the world with a lot of tenderness. Most people are afraid of suffering, but suffering is a kind of mud to help the lotus flower of happiness grow. There can be no lotus flower without the mud. And now I invite us to rise in body and or spirit to sing our opening hymn with words in honor of March being Women's History Month, or at least it was the last time I looked. Words from 11th century genius polymath. You get that joke? Okay. Words from 11th century genius polymath and Benedictine abbess Hildegard von Bingen. And music by the master of the High Renaissance, Josquin de Prez. The hymn looks to nature to find the spirit that unites us all. Number 27 in your hymnals and on the screen. I am that great and fiery force sparkling in everything that lives. Malcolm will play through once before we sing it. Standing for the covenant? Yes, thank you. I now invite us to join together in reciting this fellowship's unique covenant. This is our promise, that towards which we aspire, an expression of how to be in relation to one another and the larger world. We will read it first in English and then in Spanish. We respect the interdependent web of life and work for a just and peaceful world. We encourage the search for truth and meaning, strive for compassion in our relationships, and seek values that will benefit our lives and the lives of others. This is our covenant. Respetamos todos los estilos de vida dentro de su red interdependiente y trabajamos por un mundo justo y pacífico. Alentamos la búsqueda de la verdad y la comprensión total. Nos esforzamos por mantener compasión en nuestras relaciones y buscamos valores que beneficien nuestras vidas y las vidas de los demás. Este es nuestro convenio.
Please be seated. This congregation strives to always be a caring community. We're here for each other in good times and in difficult times. If at any time you need the assistance of a minister or the help from our care team, please let us know. And the information on how to contact us is on the website, UUFSMA.org. Each week in our service, we take time to share significant joy, sorrows, and concerns of our members and friends. And for each joy, sorrow, or concern, we light a candle, indicating that that person, that thought, that prayer is held in all of our hearts this morning. And as a reminder, if you wish to have a joy, sorrow, or concern shared, please email it to me or write it on an index card the ushers will have when you come into the Aldea. And if you are on Zoom, you can type one into the chat now, and Diego will let me know if we have any that come in through Zoom this morning. Susan, we'll light our first candle of one of great joy to see Donna Sherbrooke's doing much better and back with us in person this morning. Where is Donna? There she is. And Donna wishes to light a candle of sorrow. Her 52-year-old niece, Susie Mitchell, died after a lengthy deteriorating battle with muscular dystrophy. We send our thoughts and good wishes with this candle to the Reverend Wyman Russo, who is doing really quite well at Sophie's Cares, from what I hear from the visitor reports, and also a candle for Tina Lane, who many of you remember was here every week, and she's now also in residence at Sophie's Cares. It's important that we keep those people who can't be with us physically still with us spiritually in our community. Our thoughts are with David Stia, who's struggling with serious back issues, and his wife, Sylvia, who's being a wonderful caregiver. A candle of continued healing for Jerry Fastrup and Gloria Parto. We also send our healing thoughts and prayers to Ann Geyer, whose recovery from hand surgery is going very well, and hopefully she'll be able to return to San Miguel very soon. Diego, do I have any? Okay, none on Zoom. We are, of course, our joys, sorrows, and concerns are not just limited to the important personal ones of members and friends. We light a candle of great concern for all those being targeted by the cruel policies of the current U.S. administration. Immigrants, LGBTQ people, especially trans people, those who benefited from the work of USAID and the likely harm that will come to so many due to cuts in health and education programs, consumer protection programs, and so many other services. And we light a candle of solidarity with all those who are fighting back, demonstrating against this injustice in society. Especially this week, after the shameful meeting between the President of the U.S. and the President of Ukraine, we again light the candle that we light every week, the blue and yellow candle. We light it for all the people of Ukraine who surely must feel abandoned, We light it in solidarity with them and support for them. We hold them in our thoughts and prayers. We remember all those injured and killed and displaced by this unjust and unprovoked war. We pray for an honorable end to the war while protecting the rights and territory of the Ukrainian people. And we light our other large candle for the Middle East situation. Complex as it is, we are grateful for the hostages and prisoners released and reunited with their families. But we also mourn those who have died in this horrible war, especially the innocent children. Hopeful that much needed medical care and food and shelter continues to reach people in Gaza. We pray for a ceasefire that will hold and all the parties will move to the next phase in the peace process, leading to a permanent path to peace that recognizes the rights of all people in the region. And a final candle for all the joys, sorrows, and concerns held deep in our hearts this morning, but which remain unspoken. And let us now, guided by Craig, come into a time of prayer or meditation.
Spirit of life, great mystery, God of our hearts, may we live boldly into a project of radical welcome, that all might feel that there is a place for them here, and that we all might be transformed by the newness of faces and ideas in our midst each day that we gather together. Life can be sticky, can be muddy, can be downright scary. But we are here. And having a faith movement in sync with our ideals through which to expand our compassion and work for justice, that alone is a gift not on offer to everyone in the world this morning. May we find peace in our hearts today, a peace to carry with us throughout the week until we meet again. During this musical meditation from our beloved Paula, all are welcome to come forward to light a candle, silently bringing into this space the yearnings, the joys, and concerns of each of our hearts. 2 years ago, after having served 2 years as co-minister and then another 2 as contract minister for the UU congregation of Monmouth County, I prepared myself to be installed as the congregations as the congregation's settled minister. I had been involved in nearly every aspect of the elaborate installation service, right down to the color of the stole I was to be given in the ceremony, green, and the imagery of world religions to be stitched onto it. So a couple of days before the service, a prominent member of the installation committee got in touch with me. Would I send her a copy of the sermon I had given in the past, my sermon on the lotus flower? I responded, I have never given a sermon on the lotus flower. Oh, sure, of course you have. The congregation remembers it so fondly. I told her I'd get back to her. I did a word search in my saved documents for the word lotus. I looked through all my papers, not one occurrence. Trying to be helpful, I did some research and sent her not only the news that apparently she was mistaken, but also several links with various meanings of the lotus so that she could perhaps find out what it was she was trying to recall. She thanked me. Well, so 2 days later, I walk into the congregation, saw on the front table in the foyer the custom-designed book into which people were invited to write messages of congratulations to me. On its cover was a beautiful photograph of a lotus flower. Upon entering the side room to my office, where the participants in the service were to be robed, I saw the gifts of thanks for them, lotus flower chalices. I walked into the community room where the food was being prepared and noticed baskets of individually wrapped cookies, each of which had on it a laser-printed edible image of a lotus flower. And then, and I hadn't seen this coming yet, when the moment came to present me with the stole, signifying my installation as their permanent minister, prominently serving as its decorative end pieces were huge white lotus flowers. It became my favorite and rather hilarious memory of the installation, and also a lesson that no matter how much you think you have things micromanaged, there will always be something to surprise you. And I figured as an unexpected surprise, you could do a whole lot worse than a beautiful lotus flower. And I made a note to myself that someday I should look into this lotus thing in order to resurrect that beloved sermon of mine on the flower that I had never actually given. Just to examine lotus wisdom for the journey of our lives together. The story of the lotus intersects with cultures all over the world, and depictions of it dot the annals of poetry and art as far back as we have evidence of human creativity. You may recall the visit of Odysseus and his sailors to the land of the lotus eaters in Homer's Odyssey. Perhaps you know Alfred Lord Tennyson's gorgeous elaboration on that tale in his poem, The Lotus Eaters. The image of the lotus flower is practically synonymous with yoga, with poses and mudras and yantras and the beautiful mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, may the jewel of the lotus unite us all. And of course, the lotus is a beautiful flower, delicate and vibrant, one of the treasures of nature. But then again, so are many flowers. Why is there so much spiritual and practical emphasis on the lotus rather than, say, the rose or the lily or the daisy? Zhu Dunyi, the father of Confucian rationalism, gave the huge boost to the flower with his ode to the lotus in the early 11th century. Here's an excerpt. There are many lovely flowers on land and water. Dao Yangmin of the Jin dynasty loved chrysanthemums alone. Since the Tang dynasty, the world loved peonies. I love the lotus, which grows out of the mud and does not stain. It is washed in fresh water but does not look flamboyant. Its stem is hollow and straight and does not spread or branch out. Its fragrance is far-reaching and gets ever more refined. It stands straight and spotless in the water. One can look at the lotus from afar, but one must not play with it lightly. I say, the chrysanthemum is the hermit among flowers. The peony is the rich and powerful among flowers. The lotus is the most noble. That's from the 11th century. The wealth and power of the peony was, of course, a popular way to go then and today. Zhu Dunyi highlights two ways of refusing to be swept away by consumer culture. One is the chrysanthemum, which withdraws completely into seclusion. The other way is that of the lotus, which stands up to the prevailing winds of avarice and offers instead a vision of nobility amidst the muddy reality of the world. But there is more to the lotus. The lotus, and forgive me, I know some of you know the lotus. Some people told me about their Sangha practices as they came in and know much about the lotus, but there is much that I knew nothing about with regard to the lotus, and I hope in sharing it with you, it might stun you with amazement as it did me. The lotus builds its roots up to 6 feet in gnarly length in the darkest, murkiest of swamps. And from underneath the water feels the refractions of sunlight beckoning at the surface. It knows only to rise to the light, resisting the interference of fish, insects, and dirty, rough conditions. At first, just a stem, a few leaves, and a pod, and then the stem continues to grow and the pod slowly rises above the surface of the water. It is then that the plant unfurls its petals, one by one, into the clean air. Its petals have a particular nanostructure with microscopic bumps. They're coated in a special wax. Dirt never adheres to its surface, and water picks up the grind and rolls it off, leaving the petals always pristine. This nano-architecture has influenced the design of exterior paints, treated roof tiles, coating sprays, awnings, tarpaulins, sails, boat surfacing, manufacturers eager to replicate the so-called lotus effect. The lotus is a survivor from pre-dinosaur times. Since the late Cretaceous period, 140 million years ago. It has an uncanny ability to self-germinate, containing all the organs necessary to do so, and also an unprecedented ability to re-germinate. In 1990, scientists brought a 1,300-year-old lotus seed back to life, like reviving a frozen cave person. The lotus also has anti-aging properties. And in Asia especially, every part of the plant, rhizomes, seeds, pods, and flowers, is consumed as a food rich in vitamins, minerals, iron, and natural antibiotics. In its natural ecosystem, the lotus can heat up like a warm-blooded animal to 86 degrees, 30 degrees Celsius, incidentally, the high temperature for today. Even if the air temperature is 50 degrees or 10 degrees Celsius, today's low temperature. I just found that out this morning. This heat that it creates attracts animals and insects to its side, who then protect its roots from predators, welcoming a community into a symbiotic relationship of food, shelter, and warmth that enhances not only the lotus's own survival, but the survival of its ecosystem. The lotus is indeed, as it is called, a beautiful survivor, a thing of beauty, generating and rising from the muckiest of mud. But I think it's important to note, along with Thich Nhat Hanh, that the lotus flowers not despite the mud, but because of it. The mud is part of the reason for its being. And it behooves us to celebrate the beauty and necessity of the mud, along with that of the flower, to discover and be inspired by the process as well as by the outcome. I wonder, what is your mud? What in your life is still inchoate, messy, in process, mysterious? How is all of that mud also a source of nutrients for you, a place of incredible fertility? Perhaps your mud is a place of play, of trying things out, of experimentation. I also wonder, what are the flowers of your life? What is already blooming or beginning to bud? What are you documenting on your iPhone or posting to your online following as things of beauty in your life? And importantly, can you begin to draw connections from the mud in your life to the flowers? Perhaps things that appear to be opposites now are inextricably connected. In Unitarian Universalism, we have a lot of muddiness. Each of us bringing with us a different background, often a different belief system to a common table. We are theists, atheists, agnostics. We are Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims. We are earth-centered, celebrating the wheel of life. But we are all seekers, questioners, and practitioners of welcome. We encourage one another's growth. Like the Lotus plant, here in this congregation, we provide shelter, warmth, shade, a place of essential nutrients, a stew of openness to difference that on our best days, through the efforts of all of us, can result in our breaking through the surface of the sometimes dirty pool of ideas we swim in, and to our petals of gratitude opening one by one, a thing of beauty to behold. Indeed, the very DNA of our universalism proclaims that we are all loved, we are all saved, we are all worthy, no matter the quantity of mud. There will be times, however, perhaps you know them, when the blossom is hard to find, when the outlook is not always beautiful, when the mud of things may overwhelm us, when it may appear that all there is mud, and that there is little life to be had emerging from below the surface of things. In those times, I think back to one of my favorite books, The Secret Garden. Anybody read it recently? Oh, it's good. Mary, the orphaned survivor of a cholera epidemic in India, is sent to live with her only relative, a widower uncle. The uncle so deeply mourning the loss of his wife Lily that he has shut everyone out, and locked up Lily's beautiful rose and ornamental tree garden behind impenetrable walls. But Mary begins exploring the grounds and soon is led to the garden door's key and inside, only to find it dark and desolate. When she shares her discovery with her new friend, an earthy Yorkshire youth named Dickon, she mourns the loss of the garden's growth, for it seems clear to her that it is dead and gone. Dead? Dickon exclaims. It's as wick as you or me, explaining the Yorkshire dialect meaning of wick, alive, lively, full of life. And taking out a small pocket knife, Dickon reveals that below the surface of the gray and brown, there amidst the mud, there lingered green. Life that, like the lives of Mary and her uncle, is just waiting to be born again. I know that the green of life lurks just underneath each of our surfaces and throughout our congregational reach, even out there in the ether of the live stream, connected through the wonders of a technological miracle. We are still feeding and sustaining and caring and loving one another, just as we do here in the flesh. And as far as gardens go, we may not have lotus flowers, but the grounds outside these windows are gorgeous. If you haven't taken the time to walk around and explore, do so sometime. Take shelter in its shade, be dazzled by its colors, and be reawakened to the knowledge that this congregation is just as lively as its physical setting, deep in interconnected beauty, with great power to effect change and transformation, because we can trust, alongside the lotuses of yore, that out of the mud of our lives, great beauty can blossom. That belying the dead exterior of things, green awaits the signal of our care. That, as Dickens might say, when a thing is wick, it will grow. May it continue to be so for all of us. When a thing is wick, it has a life about it. Maybe not a life like you and me, but somewhere there's a deeper streak of green inside it. So come and let me show you what I mean. When a thing is wick, it has a light around it. Maybe not a light that you can see, but hiding down below, a spark's asleep inside it, just waiting for the right time to be seen. You clear away the dead parts so the tender buds can form. Loosen up the earth and let the roots get warm. Let the roots get warm. When a thing is wick, it has a way of knowing when it's safe to grow again. You will see. When there's sun and water sweet enough to feed it, it will climb up through the earth, a pale new green. You give a living thing a little chance to grow. That's how you will know if they are wick, they'll grow. If they're wick, they'll grow. About it and comes each day to work the earth below. Will it live? It will, and you must never doubt it, for all through the darkest nighttime it's waiting for the right time. When a thing is awake, it will
Wow, how can I follow that? Well, this is our time of generosity and, in fact, a big time of thanks for the talent of our visiting minister and everybody who participates in these services that we love bringing to you every Sunday. Unitarian Universalism is a grand vision of a world filled with peace and justice, love and joy. That vision is embodied in a few large congregations, numerous mid-sized congregations, and many, many smaller ones. No matter its size, every congregation depends on each of its members for time, for talent, for resources. Each one of you, by your commitment of time and energy, helps make that grand vision of Unitarian Universalism a reality wherever you are. Individually and together, we are Unitarian Universalists building a world filled with peace, justice, love, and joy. We know that your financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We're so grateful for this, and we commit to ensure that the funds we gather collectively do greater good for ourselves and our world and our community here than they could ever have done alone. So we welcome now your offering to sustain and grow the life and mission of our fellowship, and may we all give in love and hope, and the offering will now be gratefully accepted. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for the invitation to be here. Thank you, Susan. Susan was a member of the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Princeton, where during my seminary life I did a lot of work with the youth, and that congregation ordained me to the ministry. And so it's always wonderful to see Susan's face when I'm here. Thank you to Tom and Malcolm for their hospitality to both me and to my partner Ron. It's just always such a joy to be here with friends. Malcolm for his extraordinary gift and his accompaniment, his music, and Paula for the beautiful music this morning. I just thank all of you for welcoming me back. It's always so wonderful to see your faces again. For our closing number. You ready? You got the dance moves in the mail? For our closing hymn, It's number 77 in our hymnals and on the screen. These are words by, I'm just going to read something to you first. So, words by Minot Judson Savage, an American Unitarian minister from the 1860s to early 20th century. He held posts at several important churches in Chicago, Boston, New York, director of the American Unitarian Association, and an advocate of Darwinian evolutionary optimism. Yes, that partnered with social reform. And I'd just like to read you the words quickly of the hymn before we sing it. Seek not afar for beauty. Lo, it glows in dew-wet grasses all about your feet, in birds, in sunshine, childish faces sweet, in stars and mountain summits topped with snows. Go not abroad for happiness. Behold, it is a flower blooming at your door. Bring love and laughter home, and evermore joy shall be yours as changing years unfold. In wonder workings of some bush of flame, we look for truth and fancy it concealed. But in earth's common things, it stands revealed, while grass and flowers and stars spell out its name. I invite us to rise in body and spirit. Malcolm will play it through once before we sing it.
Please be seated. Thank you for being with us today and for your ongoing support of this fellowship. Whether you're here by Zoom or here in person, we are so grateful. You know, there are several different aspects of our fellowship that welcome our generosity. Our operating budget, of course, our Social Justice Foundation, the Minister's Discretionary Fund, but one equally important for the long-term health of the fellowship, and which we do not hear about as often, is our endowment fund. So now I'd like to invite Dan Neuspiel to share a few words about that.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning. A few times each year, we present our endowment fund to support our fellowship's future. This is separate from the Social Justice Foundation endowment you heard about a few weeks ago. The foundation looks outward, supporting our local NGOs, while our fellowship's endowment looks inward, with the goal of future support for important equipment, programs, and staff beyond what our regular budget can afford. UU Reverend Victoria Safford says that planned giving is about standing on the solid ground of the present and leaning over time to touch the future. Planned giving is about coming of age. It's about rounding that corner and glimpsing a future that you yourself will not be part of, but you care about it anyway. Planned giving is about thinking of yourself already as an ancestor, somebody's ancestor, a leaver of legacies for descendants you will never meet, but whose lives are already intertwined with yours. We leave legacies, like it or not, on purpose or by accident. Stories, values, traditions, toxic waste dumps, monuments, magnum opuses, mistakes, ethical ideals, rituals, and also sometimes money. Over 50 members have already contributed to our endowment, and so far 5 have left us legacy gifts in their wills or other documents. Since we don't want to compete with other important current needs of our fellowship, we're focusing on future gifts of property, investment funds, insurance policies, apartment contents, or other items that may be left after your death. Today, we're sponsoring an information session on our endowment and hope to see some of you after the service. Grab a cup of coffee and a cookie and meet us over there in that corner for further discussion with myself and other endowment committee members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan, and I hope many of you will take Dan up on this invitation to meet. And I hope you'll be with us next week for a very special kind of service. Thanks to our UU time travel machine, we will include a very special visit from one of the famous Universalist women from our past. The service will also include the opportunity to view the recruitment video for our new minister in residence position to help us out here. And following that service will be our annual budget meeting, so a big week next week. Also a reminder, the Social Justice Foundation stewards are going to meet after the service on the patio downstairs. And finally, a very special thank you to Craig, our guest minister, and to all the members of his congregation that are our partners in doing the work of justice here in San Miguel. It's wonderful to have you with us again, and please bring back our greetings to all of those in Monmouth, New Jersey.
For some closing words of benediction, I turn again to Thich Nhat Hanh. Both suffering and happiness are of an organic nature, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again. Everyone knows we need to have mud for lotuses to grow. The mud doesn't smell so good, but the lotus flower smells very good. If you don't have mud, the lotus won't manifest. You can't grow lotus flowers on marble. Without mud, there can be no lotus. Following our postlude, may we go in peace to bless this world of ours. And now we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.